What's going on, guys? It's your boy Ray. I'm here live from somewhere to chat with you for a bit about. I actually want to talk about Drake's new albums, plural. This did take me a few days to process and think about, partly because I'm getting over a cold, but also one Aubrey Drake Graham dropped 43 songs in one day across 3 albums. You could say to some degree it's a pursuit of him. We've seen this with other artists of getting out of their deals, trying to drop more albums to kind of check that box. I would not be surprised, but at the same time, I'm going to evaluate it as a longtime Drake listener, not necessarily the longest or deepest fan of his, but I'm going to try to be fair. I'm going to try to evaluate different aspects of his work individually as well as together. And I'm going to try not to be a hater. Now, that said, if you are here for basketball takes, I do have those, and I do want to continue my series on evaluating certain parts of the organization. That's not going to be this video. This is my personal channel, and my personal channel is going to have stuff that I might just not want to either produce heavily in terms of doing a lot of editing, even though I'm already a not great editor, but I promise you it takes me forever. But that's okay. Things I want to edit lightly or just non-basketball takes. If you want the pure basketball takes, go check out Nuggets Wave. Check out our latest episode. We're on podcast platforms as well, in audio versions, as well as on YouTube, where you'll find this. Now, to get back to it, so off rip, 3 albums, 43 songs, 2 hours and 22, 2 hours, 2.5 hours roughly, I think 28 minutes total of music. You can have a discourse about getting out of your deal, but when you're talking about just the music, that's a general procedural no for me, dog. Even I'm not saying that no artist ever has dropped a triple album. Bad, Not Good, one of my, a jazz outfit that I like, did that with their last project. But I will say, even in that case, and in this case as well, I just don't think it lends itself well to being received in a way that is going to be good for the project or for its notoriety, just because it's so much to get to. Like, I feel like I've been very intentional about, okay, let me listen to each song on these projects with focus and effort and energy, and make sure I'm really hearing it, so that nobody can say, "Oh, did you really listen to the album? Did you, or are you just hating on it?" I'm trying to get out of that space, right? So I'm trying to give it a chance. I think, and I'm going to talk about the individual albums. If you boil down 43 songs to 12, I know that's a big cut, but I think if you picked 12 of the best songs from all 3 projects, you actually might get one pretty good album. I don't know if it'd be album of the year or anything, but I think it would be a lot better than this. There's a lot of fluff to it. The number of times I asked myself, "Oh, there's more," or when each individual album did end, I'm like, "Oh, thank God." So I like a neat, tidy album. This album set did not do that. But to talk about Iceman is the kind of headliner, the rap album, and it's mostly Drake going at his kind of at everyone, going at his contemporaries, going at some of the people who may have nominally been his supporters. Women, always going at women. It's a Drake album, so if you were surprised about Drake hating on a girl he feels like didn't do him right, well, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're listening to this, watching this video, or listening to this music. But while there's always room, I think, in hip hop for that competitive machismo swagger, and we generally like that in the community. But when it gets to the point that that's really all you have to say is negative things about other people and how aggrieved you are, some of it dating back to things from 2 years ago that might have been relevant 2 years ago. There's a lot of bars in here. There's a lot of quippy punchlines, and whether it was whoever was doing the writing, they were putting in the work. There are more bars in this project than I've heard from Drake in a long time. That said, kind of talking about the size, kind of talking about the content, the bars themselves, they're kind of lame a lot of the time. And they're lame because not because it's oh well he's a corny punchline rapper. There are a lot of punchline rappers. I love punchline rappers. I have loved punchline rappers. They've been very popular. They've been very cool. It's not intrinsically wrong to have zany out there like punchlines to come in and be like, did he really say that? I love Tyler the Creator, or Donald Glover, or I know lots of people who love Eminem or Lil Wayne. One of them, probably the most notable, famous, high GOAT all time list rapper. Definitely a punchline rapper. But here's the thing: most of the time, when you have a punchline rapper, they have a level of investment in their character that, if it doesn't separate them from their own personal self, like if it's not tongue in cheek, in the way that, say, we kind of have some idea that Childish Gambino is like a character. There's that Donald Glover and Childish Gambino are different people, even though he's exploring this, live. And but there's continuity of the character that makes it believable, and that's kayfabe, and that's why wrestling is fun. Drake makes all of these punchlines, and why I think they don't land well is because the character, if you want to say that Drake is a character that he's invested in over time, a lot of these punchlines don't really line up with the image the image that he's crafted for himself. Like he's saying these things as if it's supposed to be hard. Like he's trying really hard to feel validated by the community and by, honestly, his critics, and to some degree try to have something for everybody, and in that way is for nobody, in that way, and kind of getting away from some of the bars, because there are some bars that are good. I'm not saying it's all whack. It's just for every bar that I'm like, ooh, that was kind of tough. For every flow that hits, there's a beat switch and him diving into something else, and him circling back to either topics that are cringe or just bars that are just that make you uncomfortable. Can't believe you said that, dog. You can read a lot of them. You go on Twitter, you can go read the bars if you want to, or just read it as you're listening, and it just seems kind of crazy. So getting away from the bars themselves, actually, let's talk about the flow. I think that's another part of the music and why it's not necessarily hitting. I think Drake has a certain cadence and delivery. We're kind of going to factor that in. Drake, when he came onto the scene, not many people were doing what Drake does. He has this like sing-songy, I can sing and I can rap, but I'm also going to have a conversation and have a bar. And each line, it ends on the bar. And while it was novel at one time, I think it's been emulated so much that it doesn't feel, especially when Drake isn't doing it to the utmost level, it doesn't feel new anymore because it's not. Because Drake's been around for 15 years at this point. And particularly because when he changes sounds a lot, even within the same song sometimes, his sometimes his flow structure can feel kind of mushy, undefined in a way, because there's not as much internal rhyme scheme all the time. Sometimes it just feels like him being conversational, as long as he gets back to the end of the line where he can end on the emphasis point. But the middle gets so vague that you're not really, it's easy to let it slide to the back of your mind, the music itself. And I think part of it is, I think his flow needs a little bit more reinvention, but also that's one of the same issues is like how he's a little bit boxed in because he's changed flow so many times. He's adopted new styles so many times. So when he flips to a dance hall patois or to like a UK drill sound, it doesn't feel new anymore. And for every new like sound you're gonna hear, he's gonna flip it relatively quickly anyway. So you might like one thing and then you might hate the next thing. That was my experience. Is that, oh, I'd like a bar, and then he says something cringe. And I like this sound, and then he switches it up in a way to something that doesn't feel quite um, functional. And that isn't to say the sound itself, talking about the production, is very high quality. It's Drake, and he has so much. I think he's always had a relatively good ear for quality versions of beats and sounds and things like that. And he's always had such a large machine behind him. He's always had access to all the resources he needs. And we kind of see that with other artists that when he wants to work with another artist and bring another sound, when he wants to have Popcaan on for, we'll talk about this, for like the R&B dance hall cut, he can do that. And so in that way, the music is never going to be so bad that it's wholly bad. Because sometimes when you go to a child's musical recital and you've got a bunch of kids at varying skill levels playing, trying to like syncopate on something, it might sound bad. It's not going to be bad in that way. You might be annoyed with Drake and you might find him cringe, and his bars might even vary, and his singing voice might vary as well. And I'm going to talk about that next. But the music is never going to be so unlistenable that like if it was playing in Target in the background and you're walking, because I think Mos Def said something along these lines, is that it's very music you would shop at Target to, and this is very much still true. If it was on a Target, I would not care. It'd be on the background and I'd be like, oh, it's Drake music. He's talking about the things that Drake talks about and using the sounds that he does, and it's fine. And so I'll leak you my final score for this part, Iceman specific. I'd say like 7 out of 10, like 7.5 maybe if I'm being nice. And as we kind of get into the next thing that I reviewed, which is Habibti, it's kind of his for the ladies, make an R&B album. Here's the issue. Drake can't sing. Or like the degree to which Drake can sing isn't impressive enough in a marketplace of 2026 where everybody kind of does that. There are so many places I could get a guy who, I can sing and I can rap and I can do a little bit of everything. From even guys I've listed, like Donald Glover can sing and rap and act. Ooh. So I can't say any, and kind of getting into the project in general, a lot of my highlights, to the degree that I have highlights, are the parts that aren't Drake. Because what is he doing? If running a crash course in like toxic masculinity, R&B culture stuff, basically, when he's not complaining about women. He's kind of presented as if he's this smooth, loving guy, supportive, authentic, which you don't believe. And if he sounded better, you wouldn't care. If he could sing better, he's so beneath all of there's so much sanding down of all the edges because of the auto tune and a lot of his vocals throughout these projects, that it's also sanding away the texture and the soul from it. And so it might not be conventionally wrong. Like, it's not like the wrong sound or like the wrong note or something like that. It doesn't sound anything but more than generic for me. And the other, and so it kind of ties back into, do you're really gonna believe this from Drake? It's Drake. I don't know. This is like, it's like you want to date Stephon Diggs and then it not go well, and you're gonna be surprised. I don't know, but 5 out of 10 for me on Habibti. It's mid R&B. You could get it from a lot of different places. I don't want to say like it's almost AI levels, but because it sounds like people made it, it just sounds AI curated, like algorithmically curated R&B. The last project is, oh man, um, I'm gonna draw a blank on the name, but I'll look at it while I'm talking about it. But the last project, it's kind of more of a house sort of techno thing. I would say it has the best sequencing on any of his projects so far. When you want to talk about an album as a unified project, I think it becomes really important to have a sequencing that makes sense and some continuity. It's one of the things I think he's always struggled with. He loves switching up the beat mid-track, and when you do that too many times, and he loves borrowing sounds from different communities, and when you do that too many times, it's hard to have sequencing that feels like it makes sense, like it has some amount of um, yeah, just continuity between the tracks, and you're kind of going here and there. And this final piece, I think, has a lot of that where the other albums don't. That said, my favorite parts of this continue to be the parts that aren't Drake related. It's the production, it's the features. There's more features in this segment, and it's Maid of Honor. Sorry, Maid of Honor. There are more features in this segment, and so there are a lot more moments where I can kind of get into the music, and Drake saying awkward or cheesy things doesn't pull me out of it. I would actually give this like also a 7.5. It's not like the worst. Um, it's I would say this is a mediocre project consistently. Not that you can't pull good out of it, because again, where I started, you could probably pull 12 good tracks out of it, but when you drop 43 songs, they're not all going to be hits. And when you do it in one day, it's probably going to get, even when you do drop good parts or good songs, they're going to get lost a little bit. So all that is to say, by and large, I'm going to give this like a 6.8 out of 10 for the whole project. If I were Drake, I would move on a little bit. You're allowed to take shots at whoever you want to take, but I whatever work you've done to rectify your internal being, you got to keep doing that work. There are some bits and pieces here where you are reflective or attempting to be, but it doesn't make sense in the context of what you're also seeing alongside that work. It doesn't seem like you're processing. It doesn't seem like you're maturing. It doesn't seem like you're learning the lessons or letting go or moving on from the past. It seems like you're clinging back to who you've always been. So you're even allowed to be toxic, but you can't complain to me about the outcomes of your toxic life that you are primary cause for. Um, go get some go polish up your voice. I think that's another thing. You want to make songs that sound good, make them sound good. Even if you don't have content that's relatable, the less you need the auto tune, the more people are going to feel that connection emotionally. I think that's another recommendation. And as much as you've borrowed from a lot of different sounds from a lot of different places, you're going to have to get creative with that if that's what you want to do. I know you're probably also trying to get out of UMG, so maybe with that freedom you can kind of explore. Go link up with Danny Brown or something. Go link up with JPEG Mafia. I don't know. I don't really know if you can convince one of those guys to work with you, but do something that's different. I think will be appreciated just as much as you executing better, even if you don't necessarily change everything about you, which is not necessarily possible. Anyway, this has been my review of Iceman Habibti, Maid of Honor. Doing my best Anthony Fantano impression. If you like this, let me know. Leave a comment, drop a like, watch maybe another video on my channel. I'm not going to always talk about music. I'm not going to always talk about the Nuggets or basketball. I'm not always going to talk about bowling, but I might talk about any of those things. I might talk about real world events. This is kind of the channel where that'll be more of a impromptu me chatting with you in my car or at home, but without a lot of editing, one take type stuff. So I appreciate you. Have a great day. I'm about to go play basketball for the first time in maybe 9 months, 10 months because of a wrist injury that I've been dealing with. So wish me luck. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Have a great day.